That was a really interesting video.
Yes.
The Bible Project is definitely worth going to. And I will send out the link, but also you can find it easily by just Googling Bible Project 2 John video, and it'll take you right to it. All right. So we are starting back now into the John series after taking 8 weeks off to study the dispensations. And let me make sure that picked it up properly. Okay. And the, as we get into it, we want to make sure that we keep on doing our basic preparations. Rebounding if necessary, confessing sin if necessary, being filled with the Spirit, make sure that you're being guided by the Holy Spirit, that you're not coming into Sunday school class as a carnal Christian, come as a spiritual Christian. Okay, carnal means that you've been walking in sin. It's time to repent and get back in. And then focus on the scriptures. And so this is that summary of what we just now saw. And I think that I'm going to recommend that you go back and watch it again. There's quite a bit there in 8 minutes. And so with that, we're going to do the introduction into 2 John. But first, I want to make sure that we restart by talking about John some more. Because it's been 2 months. And some of us are a little rusty. So with that, we're going to do the who, what, where, when, why, and how about 2 John. Yes? Okay. So it's the second, and it's also the smallest in a series of 3 epistles. And it turns out it is the smallest in the New Testament as well. So, and I brought along with me a simulation of the letter. I created it myself this morning. It's the exact size of what the papyrus would have been, and it's in the same language as that papyrus. This is the size of that letter.
Wow. Cool. That looks like 8 minutes.
And so we'll pass it around so you kind of get a feel for it. Wow, yeah, it's not much. But I felt like we oftentimes don't think about the reality of what was happening back in those times. And to know that this letter was that tiny is quite a surprise to most of us. And they had to keep it protected as it was transferred around. And there was a great opportunity for it to be intercepted and to be stolen and not given out to the other churches also, because it's kind of like a syncretic letter. But we'll see in a little while. Next week we'll study the actual lady and who it was written to and so on. This week we're just introducing John and the concepts of the letters. All right. So the letter identifies no specific church, but it does identify a chosen lady and her children. It's written to them. And so because there's no specific church like Ephesus or something like that, we call that a general epistle. An epistle is a letter. So every so often you might hear me say epistle, or I prefer the word letter because it's more modern, but epistle is what you might see also if you're reading commentaries. The second letter has the general characteristics of ancient letters. They usually had who is from first. Then they have who is it to. And then it will end with a salutation. Now, I think it's funny because oftentimes when people get together, we start off with salutations. But you'll see here that was the ending of the letter. And so as we get into that, you might find the salutation interesting as well. So the author, John, was the younger brother of James. They were sons of Zebedee, a fisherman who had his own mega fishing company. We always think of it as little fishermen out on the Sea of Galilee, and we don't think of it very much as a corporation. But this was a corporation. He had multiple fishermen, multiple boats, and it was not an easy operation. It was a lot of work, and Zebedee was very wealthy. Very wealthy. Scholars think that John was between 18 and 22 when he was called by Jesus. So we just picked 20. It's right in the middle there. All right. He's the youngest of all the apostles. And oftentimes he was, they looked upon him as having quite a temper. He and his brother James, or Jesus called them the sons of thunder. You know? And so when you hear that, you're like, thunder? Why thunder? Because they had explosive tempers. Okay? And now we know that the son of Zebedee, the son of thunder, is also the apostle of love in life. So here's a guy who was explosive. His life totally changed with Jesus. All right? Yes?
Is it not possible that sons of thunder would imply that Zebedee was thunder?
Well, it could have also.
That
Yeah, it could have. But they normally didn't call another, a father, a thunder, though. The sons of thunder was a terminology for, it's not the son of something. So we talked about this previously. If Jesus is the son of God, it means that he's got the characteristics, all right? So when they say the son of thunder, it's the characteristics of the thunder. It's loud and so on. But, you know, if you want to think of Zebedee as maybe being a loud fisherman, you know, that's your prerogative. But the point was that James and John both had personalities that were vitriol. It could be explosive. And we will see some of that in a little while.
Volatile?
Volatile, yeah.
You said vitriol.
Oh, I said vitriol?
Yeah.
Okay. Volatile, yeah. All
That
right.
could have
So,
learned at home.
John's also called the beloved disciple. John, he's called the beloved disciple whom Jesus loved. And you'll see here that there's a special reason why he loved John. James and John are cousins to Jesus. They're first cousins, not once removed. They're cousins, you know. They hung out together, growing up together. Okay, and we don't normally think of Jesus hanging out with anybody. All right, but he had cousins, and he also, he really, really liked his little cousin, John. The baby, you know, he's only 18 or 20 years old, and everybody else are, you know, much older than that. And so when we hear that Jesus gave him special attention, we got to think of him also as, yes, Jesus does give special attention. We always try to think of Jesus trying to be equal to everybody, but we'll find out here he wasn't. He had his own inner circle, and John is a member of that inner circle. And the other apostles did not get jealous about that, because each one, there are three groups of circles in the apostles. You have an inner circle, composed of 3 or 4. We think 4, because Andrew also sometimes was in there with them. And Andrew is also a brother. Okay, so we have James and John, brothers. Peter and Andrew, brothers. Okay, so, and we think that there's a lot of relationship going on there with the fishing company, because they're all families that all work together. So, well, Jesus' mother has a sister, and that sister is Salome, or Salome, depends on how you want to say it. And so she's directly related as a sister to Mary. She's Jesus' aunt. We don't normally think of Jesus having an aunt either. Okay? And so he's got an aunt, he's got Uncle Zebedee, you know, and he's got cousins, James and John. Yeah. So it's kind of funny when you start to see the humanity of how Jesus is related. And before he died, the only person of the apostles that was left at the crucifixion site was John. All the others ran away. They're in hiding. And John is below Jesus, and he's standing there with Mary, the mother of Jesus, and he's standing there also with Salome, his mother, the aunt of Jesus. They're all right there. And Jesus then, right before he dies on the cross, he looks to John, he looks to his mom, to Mary. He tells John to take care of his mother.
Yeah.
All right. So you may recall that Jesus had some brothers and sisters. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Well, how come the oldest of the brothers wasn't the one taking care of mom?
Because that was tradition.
It was, So in this case here, Jesus is the elder of the brothers. Had he passed on that to, he passed that on as the eldest brother of the responsibility was to be given to John, the baby cousin. Have any of you had executors of estates that the youngest one became the executor?
Yes.
That happens, all right? And in my family, I'm the third in the family. I have an older sister, an older brother, and a younger brother. I'm the third. I was the executor for both my parents. And it was passed on to me, and there was no problems with my brother and my sister saying, yeah, please take care of it. So in this case here, Jesus, one of his last things he did was to have her mom be taken care of by his beloved disciple, John. I don't know if I have it in this presentation, but later, I do. I have when they moved to Ephesus, so I'll show that in a little while. All right.
Curtis, do you think that because Jesus knew what was going to happen, do you think he knew that these other disciples were going to be martyred and that John would be the only
Sure.
one left?
Sure.
He knew all that. And later, when he's talking to the disciples, he tells Peter, what's it to you if he lives long,
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of in that little story also. I don't going to get into it, but Jesus knew all that. And so we move forward now. Some more of the author John. The two brothers, James and John, were called the sons of thunder. We said that. John, with his brother James and Peter, were members of that inner circle. Sometimes we throw in Andrew. And what does that mean? Well, the Mount of Transfiguration. There was James and John and Peter there to see this. The rest of the disciples are not there. This takes place, by the way, on the Mount Hermon. A lot of people have discussed where was that transfiguration. But Dr. Michael Heiser did a great job of proving that it definitely was a part of breaking down the gates of hell that Mount Hermon is famous for having. So if you want more information on that, go see my Unseen Realm series. I go into great detail on that and what's happening there at Mount Hermon. But it was a demonstration of Jesus and his full glory. Now, I did think it was interesting that on Mount Transfiguration, Elijah and Moses show up. And I'm thinking, how did those guys know that they were Elijah and Moses? So I've always, these little things kind of, I have to go do some more research. But immediately they recognize who they are and they want to build tabernacles or little tents for them. And, God then speaks up. The Father speaks up and says, this is my son. This is the one that you're to pay attention to.
They're not the important ones.
Yeah.
He is.
So they, along with Andrew, were when Jairus' daughter was healed. So again, we have the inner circle on these important critical situations. They were also Jesus' inner circle during the prayer time when he's in the garden, right before the crucifixion. So where are the other disciples? See, he ends up taking these guys with him to go do unique and special things, the inner circle. In the Gospel of John, in chapter 1, it's believed that John is the unnamed disciple of John the Baptist. It says a disciple of John the Baptist. And so scholars think that would be John. And that's why, and John is a youngster. So his requirements to be working hard as a fisherman were not as heavy on him as the other members of the family. He would have a little bit more time to also go find out about his spiritual walk. And so he's the youngster. He's always curious and interested in what's going on. And so it's because of the information that's given in John's gospel and nowhere else, they think that, okay, John was that unknown disciple. Again, that's speculative. He didn't name himself. He never names himself in his own John letters, Who was the guy who outran Peter to the tomb, and things like that. All right. So John wrote 5 books. We have first the Gospel according to John. That was written between 85 to 90 AD. Then 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John were all written almost at the same time. They think about 90 to 95. And then the book of Revelation, we know for certain that's in 96. So we say 95 to 96. And what gives us hints there is who are the different political figures that are named. And so we know that, John, he's on the island of Patmos. He's been exiled there. And then when the Emperor Domitian dies, then he's released. So, and we know that happened in 96. So there's some information there. So this is a picture I took in Ephesus, the death of John. So John was sentenced to death in boiling vat oil, but he emerged unharmed. It really freaked out all the Roman guards. And so he then was exiled to the island. Patmos. After Emperor Domitian died, John was released. We know that was in 96. John then lived to about 100 AD. So they figure he was maybe about 85, 86 years old when he passed away. So where's Ephesus? I was blessed this past year to be with Brian Pillmore, and he took us to all of these really cool sites in Asia Minor, which is in Turkey today. And Ephesus is right there. There's no longer a harbor there, but there used to be a big harbor, and it was a famous place. And then all the other, you can see, they're actually a day apart from each other traveling, if you're going to do a circle of all the different, but if you're driving, they're real fast. All right, so that's where Ephesus is at, and that's where this is taking place, the letters of John. So we have Jesus' public ministry about 28 to 30 AD. John was called about 30 AD, and he's an apostle living in Jerusalem until Jerusalem fell to the Romans in 70 AD. There was a Jewish rebellion that started in 66. They were rebelling against the Romans, and by 70 there was a siege around Jerusalem. Couple million people died starving to death, and mothers were eating their babies. It was horrible. Jerusalem in 70 AD was a terrible, terrible thing to happen. Jesus prophesied that happening. And then John went from Jerusalem to Ephesus. And he took with him Mary, and Mary also some of her children. So he also took Salome with him, and they all went to Ephesus. And there's a place in Ephesus up on the hillside. They call it the Tomb of Mary. And there's a house up there. They say that that was where Mary lived, and when she died, they buried her there. So she's buried also in Ephesus. And then John was buried down below in that little gully area I showed you a moment ago. All right.
Can I ask you a question? These dates, if Jesus' ministry ended in 30 AD, but John didn't become an apostle until 30 AD?
John's an apostle in Jerusalem from 30 on.
He went to Jerusalem.
Yeah. So he's living in Jerusalem as an apostle.
Okay, so where
After Jesus passed away.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Which siege was worse? The one in the Old Testament or the one modern one with Jerusalem? We say 2 million people died.
This was in 70 AD, and maybe you might be thinking of Masada, one of the other ones that happened. I don't know.
I'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know. But what we do have here is that then John goes to Ephesus right after 70, and he's there until at least 95, 96. And then we know later when he died at about 100 AD, he was still in the same area though. But he wasn't the pastor and the minister in old age. He had retired. Although Christians don't get to retire. So I'm sure he was doing something else. All right. The Gospel of John, we already went over that. So we got the Gospel of John, we got Ephesus. Yes?
So, speaking of retirement, it's amazing to me that it was 50 years from the time that he sat under Jesus' teaching until he wrote his first gospel. And then for the next, 10 years, he was very busy.
So what's happening with John is, first of all, you have all the other writings are going on. We have Mark and Luke and Matthew. We have letters of Paul going everywhere. Paul wrote a lot of letters, by the way. And there are some letters that he wrote that are not inspired, and there are some that are. For example, if you don't know this, the letters of Corinthian letters, we have Corinthian letter number 2 and then number 4. Those are 1 and 2 for us. There's a 1 Corinthian and a 3 Corinthian that we don't have. They weren't inspired. They were just his letters to those churches. But we know about them because they're referred to in the letters of Corinthians, that he refers to other letters he wrote. So there's lots of things going on here. And they're dispersing all over the world now. Even Andrew even went all the way up to India. All right. So there's a lot happening with ministry. And John, something really bad happens, and he decides he needs to write these letters. And what happened is the Gnosticism, and we're going to see that in a little bit. So, all right, and then, so John's in Ephesus until he dies. All right, so that's a little timeline. Those are the 3 stars there for his different letters he's writing. And so with that, why did he write these letters? There's a thing called syncretism and also heresies. These 2 things are happening during the time of John writing these letters. The heresies, we have the Gnosticism and we have Docetism. We're going to talk about those also and remind you what they are. I went over them the first time, but we'll do it again just so we have them fresh in our heads. And there's lots of other heresies. I gave you 10 of them at a printout, but what I'll do is I'll bring them again next week if you don't have yours from the previous time. So we did have 10 heresies written up. All right. Yeah, I know. I don't have my little camera down at the bottom. I'll remember that in the future. Put my little camera down there. All right. So syncretism. The Roman province, as well as Asia Minor, all of the area is now recognized as being a melting pot for all the cultures. Kind of like America is a melting pot. That was a melting pot. They were coming from all over. There were people that were Greeks who conquered the whole area, and then the Greeks had everybody learn Greek language. Alexander the Great, he had you learn Greek, you learn the Greek culture, and the Greek religion. It was coming from the West. And immigrants from Egypt, from Persia, and Syria brought their customs also. And so when it all comes together, there are lots of different roads, and so they thought, there's lots of different ways of getting to truth. And therefore, you have a little pinch of Plato, the Greek philosophy. You have maybe a dash of Persian dualism. They believed, I won't get into all their religions, but they got their dualism. And then there's also each of the families had ancient cults, traditions of who they worshipped, all over this area. So there's hundreds of gods. It's just a massive melting pot. Well, modern scholars call that mixing of the culture syncretism. That means we have plurality of culture, religion, and politics all mixing together. That's influencing the church. John is concerned. Then we also, in that environment, have Jews and Christians coming together. And of course, the Jews and Christians are narrow-minded. they're not going to let you, worship multiple gods. There's only one God. And they're considered to be just, you're not paying homage to the gods. So you guys, Jews and Christians, are really bad news. And most people acknowledge hundreds. They favored several deities in their homes, and they would hedge their bets by joining one or more mysterious culture, their religious cults. So we call them the mystery religions. And the mystery religions was you had to go through a secret rite of initiation into a group of men who were then going to help you have salvation through knowledge. You would gain special knowledge, special understanding that you cannot get by studying. You have to get it only by being transferred to you from the men who already have that knowledge. And we'll see Gnosticism does the same thing. But these mystery cults, turns out, Paul used a lot of their vocabulary in his writing. Mm-hmm. And so when you see that the church is a mystery, we all get initiated into the family. And so he used terms that the others would have recognized, but he used them different than what the culture was doing. So the heresies that came up, Gnosticism, this one is interesting because the Gnostics believe that, yes, knowledge will give you power, but the right kind of knowledge will save you. And they have their own special secret knowledge. Again, you can't study to get this. It's got to be passed on to you by someone who else already has it. Kind of like, cults today. They you don't get their information unless you join their cult. And anyways, all right. So knowledge was not available through studying, only by revelation. Gnosticism is a religion of saving knowledge, and the knowledge is essentially self-knowledge, recognizing that God is in you. You are God. And when you get to self-realization where you recognize that, then there's nothing that will stop you from being successful and from being healthy. And it sounds like the church tried to use some of that here back in the 80s and 90s by talking about the word of faith movement. It was very similar to Gnosticism. That's the reason why more traditional Christians got really upset with the Rhema folks, the word of faith folks, because it was a lot like Gnosticism. But they were using Bible verses instead of the sacred writings of the Gnostics. I'll bring it all up, make it easier. Okay, so the Gnostics believe that matter is evil and spirit is good. And they believe that the human body, which is matter, is full of sin and evil. So they had those categories. They thought about that. And then they said, if you want to be saved, you got to be only spiritual. So it was, I hear this kind of stuff all the time, even today. I hear Gnostics are all around us all the time. I've been surprised by it. The more I learn about the Gnostics, the more I see them right here in today's society. When a person learns what he was and what he is and what he will become, that knowledge will help him now, and he will become redeemed in Gnosticism. And some Gnostics identified the Redeemer with Jesus. So that's the reason why they would adopt some of the faith words and the writings of the apostles, and then they would twist them a little bit and deliver them back out. And that's why John sees that, and he's really, really concerned, because that was happening.
Sounds like the story arc of a lot of modern movies.
Yeah. These are modern arc that you. All right. So we know one teacher, though, that happened during John's time, and he was inside the Ephesus church, and he was teaching this information. His name is Syncretism. And Syncretism, he's an Egyptian Jew who said he also was a Christian, and he taught the following. Jesus was not born of a virgin, but is the son of Joseph and Mary according to ordinary course of human reproduction. However, he nevertheless was more righteous and wiser than any other man. I don't know where he got that, but he then went further. He taught after Jesus' baptism, Christ, the Spirit being, descended from heaven in the form of a dove from the supreme ruler, and then Jesus proclaimed the unknown Father and performed miracles after he received the Spirit of the Christ.
That's funny, because I just heard this not too long ago.
Yeah?
Where he didn't have the Spirit until the dove ascended upon him.
See, that's Gnosticism. And it's directly, we know back to Syncretism that he taught that. We have writings about that from the church fathers telling us that that's what he was teaching. And then, at last, Christ, the Spirit, departed from Jesus, and then Jesus suffered and rose again, whereas the Christ remained not liable to pain or injury because Christ was a spirit being. So here's the Spirit. He leaves Jesus. Jesus now goes through the crucifixion. He suffers. He dies. He's raised again, and they're trying to keep him separate from God. The point here is the hypostatic reunion they reject.
What was the teaching that Mary was sinless that you find in the Catholic Church? I mean, how did that jive with Gnosticism and the other one? That Mary was sinless. I mean,
Yeah, I know. They have to come up with some answer, don't they? Because they can't understand how Jesus was sinless. They can't understand how he was born without sin unless Mary didn't have sin. And so Mary must also have not had sin. That's false doctrine. Yeah. Next week, I will show you biologically why Mary's sinful nature was not passed on to Jesus. I can show you that with biology. All right. So, but males pass on genetically sin.
The sin nature.
Okay? So, this is, I'll just take a little moment. This is, no.
It's so
We're
great.
gonna see this.
I love that knowledge.
I will go details next week, but right now, the Antichrist is going to use that information. He knows that sin is passed on by males, and the female egg, there is through meiosis and mitosis, there's a separation that occurs, and the spindles are removed, which have the sin genetic built into it. So the Antichrist, I firmly believe this is just my own speculation, I believe genetically they're going to create a Messiah that doesn't have those characteristics. They're going to say, see, he's pure. So he's going to try to duplicate what happened with Jesus. And I'll give you more evidence for that later because I didn't prepare for today to talk about it. But I think there's a lot of evidence that we're going to see a lot of genetic manipulation happening to lead to the anti-Messiah.
How many base pairs will you have?
Syncretists said Jesus was a man, but the Christ Spirit was never incarnate. Incarnate means flesh. The Christ Spirit never became flesh. But we know that, we've already proven Jesus was fully God, fully man. All right. And this is why it's critical that John teaches this, because the church was getting confused. This guy is a member of the church. It'd be like one of our elders teaching this. It'd get confusing.
Yes.
Okay? Because we're like, wait, but aren't you a part of us? No, you're not a part of us if you're doing that. So John's pointing that out. First John did a great job of that, but he's got to continue it because some other stuff is happening with the chosen lady and her children, and some things are happening in another house church. So we're going to see that in 3 John. Yeah. All right. So Gnostic idea that matter was evil and only spirit was good led to the idea either following: the body should be treated harshly, which is the reason why you have asceticism. Body's sinful, got treated harshly. In some religions, they beat themselves, they whip themselves. Some people cut themselves. This all because they're thinking that their body is evil. That's one extreme. The other extreme is sin committed in the body has no connection to the spirit. So I can just live it up. I can sin all I want because it's not going to affect my spirit, which is going to be redeemed. Led to conclude that sin committed in the physical body doesn't matter. See, and John's dealing with that also. That's why 1 John he talked about, yes, your sin do make a difference. So absolute indulgence in immorality was now permissible in Gnosticism.
That's pretty wild right there.
You can do whatever you want in Gnosticism. And today it still takes place. There are different degrees of Gnosticism, but you can find all the books in Barnes & Noble. You can go get books on Gnosticism that tells you how to have a Gnostic group of friends, how to have your own little special ritual, and set it up. Yeah? So you have people who are having sex outside of marriage, think there's nothing wrong with it because they're Gnostics. Yeah, Christians who do that think they're Gnostics because they're thinking, well, there's no consequence for sin. There is a consequence. Or you got those who want to harm themselves because they feel they're dirty, they're bad. You get both extremes happening. Gnosticism has both of them. One could deny sin even existed, and that's what they finally did. They said there's no such thing as sin. That's the third group. They got away with not even having sin at all in the vocabulary. All right. So this leads to a different heresy. That was Gnosticism. The next one is Docetism. This is a Greek word, dokein. It means to appear, what appears to be. So in this heresy, Jesus appeared to be in physical form, but he really wasn't. It's just an appearance. It's an illusion.
An illusion.
It's an illusion, yes. So, his divine body doesn't suffer. Yeah? The dying on the cross is just an illusion. Okay? So, these are the key beliefs here. One, denial of Jesus' humanity. The Docetists believe that Jesus was purely divine. He did not have a genuine human nature. Now you can also see why John needs to address that. The illusion of suffering. They claim that Jesus only seemed to suffer during the crucifixion, but he didn't really experience any pain or death. It's just an illusion.
Obviously, they weren't there.
And the theological implication, no, these doctrines are there. This is taking place in the age of Jesus. It was already starting to be formed. A lot of these come from some of the philosophies that were coming from the mystery religions. And also, we didn't see this, but there's a lot of cults coming in from Persia, from India. They're also mixing into this area. All right? You know, today we might say Buddhism, Confucianism, some of these others that talk about you can get to nirvana. Don't worry about sin. There's no such thing as that. And everything you see around us, your sickness is an illusion. Okay? Don't worry about it.
Was the Jewish mysticism also being mixed in?
Yeah, so Cheryl's asking about Jewish mysticism. There is some of that, but usually they're more grounded with some scriptural basis for what they're saying, but they don't think about the illusion of suffering. They think it's real. But you can overcome that if you get the right scripture talismans. Scriptural talismans. Which I thought that was interesting because one of the gifts that my daughter gave me, I carry with me all the time. It is a Jewish talisman. And this one is to protect you while you're traveling. So it goes with my car key. And at the time when she gave it to me, we didn't know what it was because we bought it at Mardell's. Okay?
Oh, you're kidding. Well, it has the breastplate
Yeah.
of the high
So
priest
see,
on it.
it's the breastplate. It's got the Star of David. It has the 12 tribes around it. And then you flip it over, and I was just starting to learn Hebrew. So she thought it'd be great to give me, because in the back is all in Hebrew. And so as I'm translating, I'm going, wow, I can read this, and it's to protect me when I'm driving.
There you go.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
I've kept it all these years. Yeah.
It's your own St. Christopher.
That's it. It's not hanging from my car mirror. It's All right, so the theological implications, obviously. Docetism contradicts the doctrine of the incarnation. We now know that Jesus, in order to be our substitute, has to be real human. And also, for it to be eternal, it's God himself. So God and humanity together, you can't separate them. It's the same. It's not split personality. Jesus is not, half God, half human. No, it's fully human, fully divine. No diminishment in his humanity, no diminishment in his divinity. So John's letters are to help us understand that. All right, so now he's going to confront those heretics. A lack of love for fellow believers characterizes the false teachers. They don't love other Christians. They're false teachers. They react against anyone who rejects what they're teaching, and they react to them with hatred and also violence. So these heretics will separate themselves. They will take their deceived followers and they want to separate from the church. We've seen that quite a bit too. And if you remain faithful to the teachings of the apostles, then these heretics call you the heretic. Just turn it around. All right? John's replying to them about this was interesting. Their departure left the other believers who remained faithful to the apostles shaken. They were like, but we've known them for 10 years. We've had dinner together. What's going on here? So when that group leaves, the good Christians who are in the church at Ephesus are freaking out. It's like, well, are we right? Or are they right? See, there's a lot of this confusion happening. John's writing these letters to help us clear that up. Responding to the crisis, the apostle wrote to reassure them that to remain faithful and to combat this, because it definitely is something that will kill the church. So, hope this is all making sense to you guys. Mm-hmm. So, there's something special happens during this time, and that's why I gave you a handout on this hospitality. How many in the room have actually saw the most recent movie on the Odyssey? Only 3 of us. All right. So, the Odyssey, a lot of the movie takes place with this doctrine called the hospitality of Zeus. In the ancient culture, hospitality was critical. Everybody was required to be hospitable to strangers. Now, in the movie, it talks about how they have to be hospitable to strangers, to beggars, and so on, because you might be entertaining a god. There might be a god that is in disguise. And that was really a part of what happened in those times. That's really ancient culture. In Christianity, we also know hospitality, take care of strangers. You might be entertaining angels. See, it's very similar. Well, what's interesting here is I did a study on this, and then I asked ChatGPT to build me a little image here because I got tired of making new slides. So I said, well, I gave it my handout. I wrote up the handout, and I said, here, take this and create an image for me.
That's good.
And what's happening here is that the gospel is spreading really fast all through the Mediterranean area. And we know that a part of that was the trade routes and the roads. The Romans built magnificent highways that are even there today. I got to be on some of them when I was when I went to Turkey. So, but along with that was this culture that you're supposed to take care of people who are travelers. You were to take care of them. So the ancient view of hospitality was that it was a sacred duty. If you were Greek, Jew, Christian, Roman, didn't matter. They all had the same. You took care of strangers who came to visit. And you were to give them food, lodging, and protection. You protect them against any other guests that might also be there staying with you. This all takes place also in that movie. You'll see that if you decide to watch it. Very violent movie. Make sure you take earplugs. So, but this helped the gospel spread rapidly. And I'm thinking, every time I see a culture during that age, God had perfectly timed it for the gospel. And a part of that not only was these roads and the different trade routes and the language, they had the same language.
Currency.
Everything was ready. And this culture is also hospitality. I said, that was perfect. Because if you were, no matter what your ethnic background was, if you weren't hospitable, it was, you're putting your own life on the line. So, Bible examples of this is Lydia welcomed Paul. And, some people, when you read the story, you're thinking, but why would she do that? He's a stranger. Because that's the culture, hospitality, plus also the Holy Spirit's working there. But another thing is Gaius. We're going to see that in a little bit. Gaius was being really, really good in 3 John. He's helping out church. He's helping strangers. And he's been told, you got to go take care of this bad guy who's a jerk. You guys saw that in the video. There's a guy that is he's not being hospitable at all. So, but Gaius had to correct that. Well, we also see lots of believers being commanded to show hospitality, be hospitable. Even today in our society, we recognize those who have this gift of hospitality, and we all like that. And also, we know that a part of the church growth was through hospitality. All right. Oh, I'm over time. All right. So you have, there's an outline that will be given to you. And this is a Chuck Swindoll outline. I'll give it to you next week, along with, as we get into the actual verses. And I want you to read 2 John. 13 verses. I do want you to read it before you come back next week. Read it. 13 verses.
Did you give that to us before at one time?
Yes? No, not that one. The second, I gave you 1 John outline from Chuck Swindoll. This is the 2 John outline from Chuck Swindoll.
I mean,
Go back to that for a
like a
second.
long time ago.
That, I gave you his 1 John. This is 2 John. But I'll give it to you again on next Sunday. Yeah.
You'll give us this one.
I'll give you this one. Yep.
And not the other one.
Not the other one.
This one here.
All right. Yeah, that one there. So I want you to do that. Next week we're going to start with the lady and her kids. So read all of 2 John and then be ready to talk about 1 through 3. And I gave you a handout that has questions for you to be thinking about. Homework, yeah. All right. Yes, one more and then close this in prayer.
Okay, when the siege I was thinking about was when Syria attacked Samaria.
Oh, yeah.
And when we ate my son, and we were supposed to eat her son. And
Yeah.
she let eat her son. So that's pretty.
Yeah, that's also, it happened, I don't know the year though, but it's like 1,000 years before this one.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also the one where the angel walks through and kills a lot of people. But we'll get to that. All right. So let me close in prayer. Father, thank you very much for helping us to be reminded that we should be hospitable, and also you have really some interesting stuff ahead for us. I pray, God, that each and every one of us will have an opportunity this week to study, to read the questions, and to be prepared next week to talk, and that you would be glorified in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.